Hello everyone, my name is Ash, my pronouns are they, he, and today I'm here to give you an update on my notebook journaling system stuff. Things have been a little bit hectic for several different reasons, and I'm not going to get into all of it, but the rundown of it is I've been working on different medications over the last couple of months, different dosages and such. I had a journaling crisis, if you will, where my system didn't seem to work out for me, and I wasn't sure what to do about it. One second, my cat. And lastly, I had to sign up for college late April. It's currently the 7th of May. And my, how you say it, enrollment exam is in the first week of June, and I have to make several art pieces to do the enrollment stuff. So I've been really busy all of a sudden. But all that said and done, I think I made some progress since then, so I get to talk to you about that now, I suppose. First off, I had 7 journals that I was planning to use. My cat really wants to be in the video. I had my everyday long form journal. I had my pocket traveler's notebook. I have my morning pages, my line a day gratitude journal, my reading journal, a sketch a day journal, and then we technically also have my 2 different spiritual related journals. I believe that's it. Which would technically be 8. Anyway, too many journals, if you ask me. I don't know what I was thinking, but therein also lies kind of the issue. Some of these I don't mind being separate journals, like my spiritual journal and my divination study journal. Those are the 2 spiritual ones. I don't need those every day, and when I use them, they are a thing that I want to refer back to separately. So those are fine the way they are. Same with the morning pages. It's just a lot of writing, and I think if I was to do that in my daily long form journal, it would clog up what I use that for. So things like that I don't mind being separate. I noticed that the sketchbook one was just, for some reason, not wanting to agree with me in keeping that up as a daily thing. Similarly with the gratitude thing. I've kind of been trying to get back into the gratitude journaling this month, and it's kind of wishy-washy. I'm not sure what that is about, but at the start of the year it went great. I did it almost every day, and then I fell off and tried to pick it up a few times with mixed result. Similarly with the sketch a day one. The reading journal has been going absolutely amazing, and my only complaint with that one is that I'm using an Arch and Olive notebook, and the paper does not agree with fountain pens. Or not with wider or wetter fountain pens. So anytime I try to do nice calligraphy headers in it, it either bleeds through or I have to do something with the pen so that it doesn't soak the page in ink with just a single line. Don't have that issue in my other journals, which is a shame because I paid like $30 for that one journal. But besides that, I absolutely love my reading journal. It's probably the one I use the most consistent for what it's used for. And then I had a bit of a crisis with my everyday long form companion journal and my Trevor's notebook. The other thing I also did is add an additional Trevor's notebook in, what was it, February? Let me see. It's over here. This little thing. I currently have 3 different refills in here. One is to keep track of my fiber art projects. One is for a course I'm taking, like an online course. And then the other one is all my game-related notes. I'm trying out a different way to keep track of my video games because I like to switch games quite often. And then when I want to get back to them, I obviously forget some things. So I'm trying to see if this will help me actually finish games that I'll enjoy. So that's its own thing with not necessarily daily need of use. So let's have a quick look at this journal. I've been experimenting a bit with these, and sometimes I like them and sometimes I don't. I guess I like it when I feel very overwhelmed and unfocused to have this on my desk, but I don't know where to put them once I'm done with it. So I've been doing a couple of different things with my overview pages. Let me zoom you in. This is how I started, with a reading overview of the month, my monthly goals, month in review, and whatever pens I inked or inks I inked up for that month. And then I would just do my long form journals, daily entries like this. Some pictures in there of various things. And then the other thing is, at the end of January, I decided I wanted a pen and ink specific journal, which is this one here. Just a place to use and play around with pens and inks, and try some different things based on what I saw other people do that I thought was interesting, but it didn't really stick with me. And this is more my kind of jam, if you will. Nay, Jinx. My cat really wants to be on the desk. So, stuff like this. Whenever I get a new pen or new ink, I will make an entry in here, write about it. Whenever I ink up for a new month or am contemplating a new color for the month, I also do that in here. So I've not been using it a lot, but I've been using it and having fun with it. And I also considered that if I want to get back to creative writing, I could also do that in here and use that as an excuse to use a certain pen or ink. So that's what that is. And that's what I decided at the end of January. February, I started the month similarly. I like this ink color, but not at the same time. I think it's too light and too soft for my taste, so I really didn't enjoy using it at the start of the month, and then I switched to other inks when I got them in the mail for my birthday, which I made a video about, so I'll link that here. I put some pictures in there about it as well. This is also when I was first experimenting with these cards, and I stuck them in here, but it's not really ideal, I gotta say. This is when I got the new Traveler's Notebook. And March is when I changed it up and did not do the overview on the other side, and just stuck with the one page. But my entries were still kind of the same. This is also when I was feeling the journal crisis the most, and did some journaling about what do I need, what do I want, any thoughts related to it. Just writing all of that stuff out. I kept coming back to thinking about the bullet journal method, which is kind of ironic because I switched to basically what I'm doing now because that didn't really fully work for me. And then I did these pages to write out about what journals I was using and what the purpose of those journals was, to see if that would help me clarify things. It sort of did, but also not really fix the issue I had. So this is when I decided to do the wrap up at the end of the month. And in April, I started doing a page with wishes for that upcoming month, basically. I wanted to do that for May as well, but I haven't gotten the time to write it out yet because I've been a bit stressed about things. And midway through April, I started implementing some bullet journal ideas again. So I made a course overview checklist of what I had to do that month. And apparently didn't fill out everything yet, but that's fine. Some more considerations about bullet journaling, and if I were to do that again, how was I going to do it? What did I like about it? What wasn't going to be fitting? Some related methods I saw on their blog, which would be the 1, 2, 3, 4 system, the interstitial journaling method, and the Alistair method. And this is when I started experimenting with the 1, 2, 3, 4 system. And the idea of that is that you start doing a quick and easy task, followed by a cleaning or tidying task, then a difficult, big, challenging task, and then a fun or relaxing activity. And that way you build momentum, but also give yourself time to slow down, recharge, and then go at it again. I've had mixed results with it. I think my issue is that I cannot sustain the follow-up enough with my ADHD, so I get lost midway through the plan and then cannot start back up again because I have a difficulty seeing things as small and quick, and then they end up being like 30 minutes or more, or like tidying things also become quite large projects at times. So I'm having some difficulty figuring that out, but I'm still experimenting with it because I like the idea of it, to build momentum, all of that. Yeah. I got a new game, so that's going to be filled out still. And this is where I started doing weekly resets, which are also talked about on the bullet journal YouTube channel, I believe. Not entirely sure. But what I basically started doing is at the end or start of the week, I would do a rundown of all the things that happened last week. A note on my sleep, because I'm having some trouble with my sleep, either in getting enough sleep or going to bed at reasonable times, getting up at reasonable times. So I want to keep an eye on that. Then my to-dos for the upcoming week, and then for the upcoming week, and then upcoming week's events. And I also did a little visual marker for how busy or not my days were, so I can schedule or estimate things around that. These are some other related things to that. I put a weekly reset plan in steps, kind of, to help me figure out how I wanted to do this. So I had written down get our information data like week, the past week, tasks, events, etc. Create an overview of data, recognize needs based on tasks and events, set priorities based on tasks and events, set limitations to guard energy, which would be things like I cannot do more than this amount of things or time on that specific day to not overload myself. Set up tracker for tasks, habits, etc. And to think of a plan B for tasks or set expectations for low bad energy days. And then this is kind of based on that, based on the other things I wrote out in here, and then this is my habit tracker. This was a little bit chaotic, but oh well. This is the next time I did it, which felt a bit more focused, but this upcoming week overview wasn't really working out for me the way I did it, because I was just writing down whatever came up or I found out on my calendar, and then putting dots what day of the week it was, but because everything is at a different place, it didn't really work for this specific instance. And then I had to redo it kind of here. For the task list, because this was the second time I did it, I also used arrows to mark what tasks had to be moved to the new week from last time. And I started using these circles to show what my personal priorities were or external priorities. So things that I think are important or things that are required for other things. Or that are just objectively important, that I have to work on it to improve anything. Like for example, my sleep should be improved because that will have a like a rippling effect on everything else I do. But then starting new habits, I think those are important, but if it doesn't work out, it's not the end of the world. Some other things are way more important than that. So this was kind of helpful in a way. And at the end of the month, I started doing my day entries more like this, like the rapid logging type of deal, where you just do quick bullets of things you did. The interstitial journaling is when you use timestamps, and technically it's meant to be used like, oh, you stop doing a thing, you write down something about it before you go do another thing and tell yourself what you're planning to do next. I didn't really do that because all of this is written down at the end of the day, but it's similar in idea. And I wanted to add the times in this instance to show me what I roughly did at a certain time or from a certain time onwards. I have my April in review here, my new schedule for this current month for the course that I was taking. My month overview, I still have to fill this out fully. My reading goals I already have written out in my reading journal, but I haven't had the time to sit down for any of this because of the college application assignments. This is when I did more of those bullet type entries. Here I was experimenting with a journal cover issue thing that I was trying to solve. And I started doing more checklist-like things in my day entries. And then here we have my current week reset. So I had a lot more to say about last week than any other time before. I think this kind of helped me with like the week overview thing. And then this is the same task list idea. Also, you might have noticed that the task list is also formatted in a 1, 2, 3, 4 method type of categories. And that's how I've been using it currently. I also have numbered all my pages by hand and started a new index paper of all the things I've written down that I might want to refer back to later on a separate piece of paper, because I didn't leave a page at the start or at the end because I always have my pen test at the end. So I just tore out a piece of Rhodia paper from my spiral notebook, and I'm using that as a index currently, which is working reasonably well. I also did make a future log, but in the Alistair method way, where I just write down events with the date and then put a dot for what month it's in. So at the start of the month, I can look at that specific list of things. And then here I've started a random ideas list thing that I can cross off if I actually did the thing or not. Help myself gather all those random ideas, because I'm pretty sure I had more than I have on that list, but I tend to write them down with like an eye icon, and I couldn't find more of them. But I'm pretty sure there are more things like that in here. So I don't really want to reread all of that, but if I find anything or do anything from here on out, I can write it in there based on that. So this is kind of helping me feel a bit more purposeful with how I use this journal. The only thing I still have to do is make an overview in here of my college application thing. I think that would be helpful because I currently have it digitally, and if I don't see it, I'm not reminded of it, even though it's constantly on my mind that I have to work on that. And I do have some of those things on this list, but I think it would help if I had like the actual overview of everything in here as well. So that's going to be on my to-do list next. But what I do when I do the week reset is basically I go back to the last week reset and read over all of my entries like quick. See roughly what was going on when, and then I write down bullet points for all of those things. So that's been helping me with this. My pocket journal has kind of turned into more of a to-do list type of thing than what I used it for previously, and that's been fine. I have it on my person at all times. I just use it like only 10% of the time now compared to what I used to. It's fine. I just let things change and be what they are according to what I need and figure it out that way. If it doesn't work out, I'm going to change it again. So that's a quick view at things for now. I have an appointment in a moment, so I'll be back to talk about some other things in a moment. Alright, I'm back. I'm taking my medication right now before I get. And let's look at a couple of things that I already somewhat mentioned, but want to show you a bit more thoroughly still. Where shall I start? So, I briefly mentioned the new Traverse notebook. There we go. This is the black edition. At the time, I actually kind of wanted to get the camel version. I was very charmed by the color because I saw these in a store, which is probably the first time I saw them in a store at all. So that caught me by surprise a little bit, but they didn't have this size in camel, only the passport size, and I already have a passport, so I didn't see the point in getting a second one. So I just went with the black instead. I added a sticker on here that I got of Redbubble of Alucard because I am a big Castlevania fan. I had one of these pen clips still from years ago and put a new piece of leather on there to hold my Lamy All-Star on it. And this thing here looks like a fun little charm, but it actually used to be a paper clip holder thingy. But so I got a pack of 2 of these, only turns out they are kind of shit at holding onto things. Like this, it's fine, but if I put them on a card or anything and even slightly move it about, it just moves, and it's not very useful. So I took one of them apart, filed down the back of it, and now it's a little charm thing I can stick onto the elastic band. I have one of those zipper inserts in here, and as I mentioned, I use one of these inserts. This is the Midori cream paper for my fiber project notes. So any projects that I've started or want to start and got materials for, I write down in here with when I started, what I'm using, any related notes, maybe a picture. stuff like that. And then on the other side, I might write down times I sat down working on it and any notes that were relevant at the time. Same here with the weaving project, another knit, and that's about it so far. This was the course notes, but before we go into that, this cream paper is basically the same as the Midori notebooks, like the regular notebooks that you can get. So this is pretty good with various fountain pens. It shows sheen and all of that decently well, so this functions quite nicely. This is the lightweight paper insert, which has twice the amount of pages. But what I understand, and it's not listed on any of the information, but I believe it's either Jetpans or Joseka that I saw say this, that these inserts are made with Tomoe River paper, and I would believe it, but that also means it struggles with the same issues that Tomoe River paper currently has with inconsistency and bleeding through. Like, this would not happen. I don't think you can see it. Like, ghosting is normal with this paper, but I don't think you will be able to see it very well. This is actually starting to bleed through. Like, it's no longer regular ghosting. It's starting to bleed through to the point that I cannot write on both sides of the paper anymore. Some pages are worse than others, like this one. There we go. This one is much worse, and it's been to the point where I've started reverse writing with my fountain pens because I refuse to take out a ballpoint or a gel pen. Also, I think, let me double check. I think my gel pen bled through. Let me see, did I? This is, yes, it did actually bleed through on some points. Not as much as some other pens did, like the wider nib ones here. Those bled through as well. So currently I'm writing in it with a gray ink, extra fine nib, and then reverse writing with the extra fine nib. And that helps. But even then I sometimes have issues with the paper to a degree, and I just try to make the best of it. But besides the paper issue, which is overall not ideal but manageable, I do like this insert. This, like, it's a nice amount of pages. I like the size for the course notes. It's quite a good experience besides that one thing. The course I'm taking is about animistic traditions in the lowlands, so that would be the Netherlands, Belgium, that kind of region. So it's a type of spirituality, and the course is very focused on spirit work and trance journeying, and like trance states of similar to trance in the sense of meditation, altered brainwave state of mind, rather than transgender. Whenever I say it, I always have to remind myself of that in my head. This is one of the pencil boards that I got. For some reason it was hard to find pencil boards. I don't know what's up with that, but I got one of those from the Love and Trip editions. It's alright, it's nice. It's sturdy, it's like a plastic. It's slightly bowed, but I don't think that will ever be an issue, and I printed on a sturdier piece of paper a 5mm and 4mm grid to use behind these pages. In case you also want a different grid, sometimes if you have thin enough paper, if you get a blank notebook, you can just print out a grid size that you like and then use that instead. It's a little bit more cumbersome to put a sheet behind something to write, but I find it works well enough. And then this is the grid refill that I use for my game journal logs. And what I do with these logs is I write down what the game is and the platform I played on, date my entries with a title, usually about roughly what I was doing, and then I write down what I did and what I want to do next, so that next time I play, I can look it up in here, see what I did. Oh, this is what I was planning to do. Okay, I can go from there. And I did that with various different games because I like to jump around, as I mentioned before. There's actually a game I need to add to this list with a particular note for if I ever get lost again trying to pick up this game. So things like that I'm also going to be writing in here. Things like that, basically. Maybe I'll change how I use this down the line. Maybe I'll also do my game reviews if I finish something in here. That might be fun. But I'm not necessarily planning anything around this. I just want a place at my desk to revisit for this purpose. One thing I did notice is that my pens write wider on this paper than it does on any of the other inserts. I also, when you get one of these notebooks, it also comes with a blank Trevor notebook insert, and it's supposedly the same paper as these grit ones, but for some reason I found that this paper writes slightly wider. It doesn't make sense to me why it does that. It doesn't bleed through except for this 1.1 Coeco Sport with Coeco Plur Black. That's the only one that bled through slightly, just very slightly. All the other ones are fine. So if you use fountain pens, the regular refills are pretty decent. Yeah, just letting you know about that experience. And then I have one of those Hobonichi notebooks that I use as like a word list. So whenever I read books with words that I might vaguely know the idea of, but not fully, I will write them in here and then write out the definition beside them, so I can basically learn more words. Most often it happens when I read things like classic literature, because some words are just old-fashioned, but also English is my second language, so I haven't used it a lot, but it's just a nice thing to have and to use every now and then. So that's what I have in here. I'm quite liking this size, especially for quick on-the-go notes, that kind of thing, but I'm not sure if I could replace like my whole system in something like this. I do like it. I don't regret getting this at all, even though it seemed a little bit impulsive at first. So that's that one. Now, I already showed you my ink journal, so let's continue with my reading journal that I also mentioned. Before I do that, I'm going to forget this if I don't say it now. You might have seen the video where I talked about the minimal desk setup cards and timer and everything that I got. I'm still using the timer. It's on my desk at all times. I still like it. It's been a few months now. It's pretty decent. One thing I did have to do is glue on these protective coverings on the magnets. But overall, I'm quite pleased with it. I still think the sound that it makes is on the low end, still a bit loud. So personally, I would like that to be tweaked a little bit. But overall, I'm just very pleased and like how versatile it is, that you can set 2 times, change it up, have it automatically go between the two. It's just very nice and convenient. Also, the way you can use it with batteries or cable is just really nice, in my opinion. So just wanted to get that out of the way, because usually I have it attached on the arm that my phone is currently in. I just saw it while I was grabbing this notebook and thought I have to do that right now. So this is the Archer and Olive traveler size notebook, and it has one of those nice shiny insides, and I set up the book with some goal pages, intentions, all of that tracker type stuff in the front, and then back to front I did some other things like my physical TBR from like the start of this year, grid guide, pen tests, a spread I put a like set aside to write about my habit and reading habit and journal habit review at the end of the year, and that's also where I do my series reviews, whereas my book reviews are done front to back. So eventually I will meet in the middle, hopefully, or rather not in the middle but more towards the end, but that's how I set it up. So I have my intention for the notebook, a brief description of what my habit was like at the start of the year, what layouts I was planning to use throughout, and then we have my first goal tracker, which is my tiered goals of reading. Let me zoom in. So I started doing this last year, where I noticed the year prior that I would either struggle to feel like being able to meet a low set goal, and then I would breeze through books and suddenly my goal was already passed, or I would be almost twice that amount. So I decided to make a tiered goal. So first, my first goal would be to read 12 books in a year. If I would meet that very early, it would move up to 25 books. If I meet that goal, my next goal will be to read 50 books, and so on. So I set goals up to 75, because last year I believe I read exactly 50. Or 40, I don't remember. Something around there. I'm also doing the boxes in a color that I pick for each month. I actually forgot to add one in there. Let me double check. Yeah. So let me do that right now. There we go. These are some more specific goals I set for the entire year. So one of my goals is to read 80% of the days in the year. So I set up a tracker page for that. My other goal is to read 12 classics this year, so I also have a page for that. To read 12 books in a text format, more specifically print if I can. But I want to encourage myself to read more print books, or books without relying on audio, just to not lose that ability and only read audiobooks. To complete my self-made challenge, which I call the Alchemy of Me challenge. It's also available on Storygraph in case you're interested in something like that. I believe there's like 13 people or something that are currently doing it along with me, which is very fun to see, because I can also see what books people are using for prompts. Let me see. It was, yeah, there's 13 participants right now, and 288 books logged. That's quite mad. At this point, we are just 5 months, like this is the 5th month of the year. I am 40% done with my challenge already, so I'm very pleased with progress I'm making on that. But I set up a whole tracker for that as well. My other goal is to finish 3 series on my TBR. I had specific series I want to read this year, so I put all of those on a list as well. I want to read at least 3 of those, which is very ambitious because some of these have like 10 books in it, and I need to start from the start. The other one is to read 6 books from my existing collection, of which I read 1. So that's... Actually, let me check which one was that. I might need to add some to that, actually, that I think about it. Because there's 2 books on here that I read last month that have been on my TBR since 2019 or something. So we have... Alright. Alright. I'm going to have to do something about that because I no longer have that color inked, and I would like to do it in the color that I inked it in. But that's besides the point. So you can't really see how well I'm doing on these goals on this particular spread until they're finished. But at least I'm referring back to pages on this one over here. Then we get into the Alchemy of Me challenge page, which this is my motivation for the challenge. And then I have 5 themes that each have 5 prompts, and then I have a bonus prompt on the bottom here. And whenever I finish a prompt, I put down the cover with the rating and then the review page. Some of these have stickers temporarily stuck on them to remind me what book I want to read for that. But that's basically what that is about. You might also be able to see that this is one of the places I had trouble with the ink showing through the page, and on this side as well. It's very faint here, so I mean, I'm not overly complaining, but it's something that has been bothering me, increasing me more and more the further through this notebook I've been going. And most of the time it's limited to here and here, and whenever I did stuff like this, I totally get that it's bleeding through. If I do that, I will not be complaining about that specifically, because that's what happened on the bottom here. That's totally on me. Like, I expected that to happen. That's fine. But if I just write a header like this with the thickness of the paper in this notebook, which I believe is 160 GSM, and it supposedly also takes marker pretty decently, so I am a little bit miffed that it like bleeds through the way it does. I'm not sure if you can see it properly, but it's doing that on several headers here, and you know, sometimes I'm fine and I can live with it. Other times it really bothers the living shit out of me. So the further in I got, the more creative I've tried to be with that to solve the issue. So we have 5 categories. One of them is the numbers game, so all these prompts have a number-based thing, such as a book I've owned for over 5 years. This is the discomfort zone, so all these books have some kind of unsettling thing about it, be it something I fear or a non-human main character, because that is kind of uncomfortable because we are people, so we see everything through a human lens, and trying to inhabit a non-human being is weird and different. So that's what all these are about. Soul searching is about things related to me or you if you're doing this thing as a person. So I have one about read a book about identity, be it gender identity or a different identity related topic. I'm transgender, so gender identity is very relevant to me, but I think it could be relevant to pretty much anyone, regardless on if you're trans or not, because it tells you about how you see yourself, your experiences, and reading other people's experiences is very enriching to life and how you can see the same things differently. Also, part of this is reading things that others recommend you, or that others were very inspired by or very much enjoyed, to see how you relate to those people or those topics. make up your own mind, get to know yourself better. That's kind of the deal with these prompts. Personal alchemy is about reading things that help you develop yourself. So things like reading a book on a hobby, a philosophical book, things like that. And then the last one is the Beyond Me category, where you read things like from a different language, classics, which are usually quite old compared to modern day, books that are over 100 years old, things about history, or things on random. Just basically anything that is outside of your own experience, or time and reference, all that goes in that category. Then we have my 12 classics of 2025, which I pre-selected a list of classics I was interested in. So most of these are horror related, like Dracula, Frankenstein, Haunting of Hill House, Ghosts and Goblins, I believe, is also horror. I'm not sure if Picture of Dorian Gray is horror, but it has a similar unsettling type of theme. Women in White is, I believe, also a horror story. Sorry if you can hear the dog in my neighborhood. To get back to this challenge for a moment, I am almost done with the Beyond Me category. I only have to pick the random book, which I want to reserve for later. Of the Personal Alchemy, I only need to read one more. I need to fill this one in still, because I did do the review, but I didn't fill out that rating yet. Let me catch that up real quick while we're at it. So I only have to read one here as well. I have read none of these, only one of these, and only one of these. So overall, it's not that bad, but I need to keep up with it. That's the only thing. With this one, the goal was to technically read one classic a month. That didn't happen. So I have started reading Frankenstein, or attempted to, and then had a kind of drop off. So I put it on pause, and currently I'm reading Moby Dick, and I have prepared myself to be able to read Dracula and Dorian Gray. And Dorian Gray, the movie, is one of my favorite classic inspired movies, so I'm very excited to get to that one. But currently having a lot of fun with Moby Dick, which I didn't expect to say. It's quite a thick book, and I watched Ian McKellen, I believe his name is, do a review on Moby Dick, and I believe there were some points of complaint he had, yes, this whole chapter is the author info dumping about whaling or types of whales and that kind of stuff, and that was just not his cup of tea, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly. Sorry if I'm not. And when I heard him say that, my brain instantly went, I need to read this book for this very reason, because I love people info dumping things that they're interested in to me. I don't believe I've heard a lot of chapters like that yet, but I'm already having fun watching these people go on their whole voyage. So far it seems to be very much about prejudice, which is also a very interesting topic to think about. Getting back to all of this, not distracted, I'm also getting very distracted by the dog. So I'm going to close the window and see if that helps. Alright. It should be at least not as loud anymore, which I'm not sure if you could hear to begin with, but at least that's no longer an issue. So here we have the series tracker. I was reading this series at the end of last year, and I only had to finish up with the last 2 books, so I just added it on here, even though it wasn't really a goal per se. I bought these 2 series last year, Am I saying that right? I bought Earthsea last year in print. This one, Murderbot Diaries, I read last year in audio, and I had pre-ordered the new paperback editions that collect 2 books per new paperback. So I'm currently rereading that one in print. I've had The Witcher on my TBR for quite a while. I've read the first book, so I want to get to the other ones at some point. We have the Chronicles of Amber, which I've tried to read the first book a couple of times because I was gifted it in Dutch. Never finished it, so I'm planning to read it in English this time. The Dragon Age novels, I'm quite a fan of Dragon Age, so I want to get to those books, and then also play the games in order while I'm reading them. That feels like a fun project, so that's on here. And I started the Malazan Book of the Fallen series, and that's quite a commitment because all of these books are like over 500 pages each. But I'm having a very good time reading those, so I'm not regretting the decision yet. We'll see how I feel about it later. I'm very interested in the way that author Stephen Erickson does world building and involving gods and supernatural things in his story. So it's very different from other things I've read, but I'm having a good time with it, even though it's quite dark and confusing at times. I was exposed to the fact that the Chronicles of the Avatar series exists, and I really like Avatar The Last Airbender, so I wanted to read that. And I've been reading various books from the Arkham Horror. It's not really a series, but more like a franchise topic. There's also a role-playing game, I believe. So I made a page for it and added in later. But it wasn't originally on the list. There's other series I kind of want to read that are not on this list, like June and the Vampire Saga, like the Interview with the Vampire. But I don't think I'm going to get to those in this year because these are already quite a lot. So this is my pre-selected list at this point. We'll see how that goes. Then I have my format and genre list, which I set up like so. The idea was that whenever I read a book, even if I don't finish it, I will mark a dot that corresponds to a genre in the format that I'm reading it in. And then I can reference this with the monthly pages that I have to see which books would be those things. That's kind of how I am doing that. It's quite interesting because it shows me how much print editions I read, how much audiobooks I consume at a given time, digital versions, all of that. This is my library checkout list. I don't really borrow a ton of books from the library, so anytime I do, I mark them on this page, which I actually have read some of these and not marked them. This one I decided to not finish, so it's strike 2. And I just write down the date I started borrowing it. And I put a reservation in for this one and then canceled it because I was getting behind on the books I was reading. This is my daily reading goal, which is the 80% of a given time reading goal. Basically, what I'm doing here is every day I skip reading, I put a circle, and every other day gets a cross. And then at the bottom of the list, I write down the percentage of days I read that month. And then here is in the square the percentage per quarter of the year. So this way I can see how successful my reading goal is per section of time. So if, let's say, I have a very bad month somewhere here, where I was barely able to read at all for maybe there's health issues or whatever, but everything else is like at the 80%, I will be very happy with that. That will be a success to me. Like, Outliers are fine. It's more like building a consistent habit and maintaining my every 2 day streak. That's essentially the goal. This is my statistics for the year overview, where I write down the amount of books I have engaged with, the amount of those I finished, which ones are from the library, bought, how much I spend on books or reading, the pages I read, hours I read, audiobooks, text editions, the days of the month I read or skipped, how many goals I met that month, be it my challenges or goals I set the month itself, how much of those were fiction or non-fiction, and the amount of different genres in a month I was reading. And then the percentage that is also on this page, just for clarity's sake. And now we go into the months. I'm gonna need to drink a bit of water. Alright, so this is how I started doing it, with one page as my month overview, where I would write down when I was reading what and what days I skipped, with this weird pattern, the goals I had for the month and whether I met them or not, and the books I bought. And then these were the ones I was reading, and if I finished them, I would put on a book cover with the rating and the page number that the review is on. Books that I was carrying over to the next month get this weird dot arrow thing pointing that way. This is an abbreviation in Dutch that means niet van toepassing, or not relevant, kind of. It's because on this side I was trying to put a bar of this amount of percentage of the book I read that month, roughly, to give me an idea of how my progress was going, which I kind of like doing that. But in this instance, it was just I was reading this book on specific pages as it was relevant, because this is a game book, like a role-playing game. So the same thing here. It wasn't like I was reading it back to front and there was a percentage to go through, but I wanted to list it on here anyway. Yes, then we have my streak. And I believe for this one I used my streak as was listed as story graph, but I decided to do it slightly differently from this month onwards. I'll explain that with the next spread. And then I have some other circles with the pie graphs of days I read versus not, the format division, and how many finished versus not finished. I also had a bunch of these smaller cover stickers left that I thought I might experiment with using them in here, but I didn't really like how it looked. It's just feeling a bit chaotic and cluttered, and that's the opposite of what I want. It's like overwhelming me more than telling me information that I wanted to track with this. So one rule I set for myself was that any layout I use, I can only tweak very small things about, but I have to use that layout for 3 months, just to see if it's getting used to it or not. So here I did the same thing again. Didn't do the covers on here or those stamps that I have for what kind of format I'm reading it in. And I like this better in a way because it's less overwhelming, but there's still something about it that's overwhelming to me. The other thing that's less ideal, in my opinion, is that I was doing the weeks top to bottom instead of left to right, which is my preference for things like these. And I could have done them like so, but I didn't think about that, so I didn't. But basically, it's not that much different. What I did differently here regarding the streak is story graph. I have set up to track my streak for once every 2 days. So sometimes when I read 3 days in a row, it doesn't count that as 3 days, but as 2 days, I believe. So the amount of days in my streak is less than I actually read, if that makes sense. So from January onwards, I took the number from the last month and then counted the amount of days I actually read, wrote down that number. That's how I'm working around it. So there's that. This is where I experimented with a book I didn't finish or plan to finish, and I cut up the cover in pieces. I thought it was funny, but it's so maybe not ideal with what I would want. I was having some issue with bleed through on this page as well. I don't know if you can see that. There's some there for the header on the other side. There's some here, I believe, from the lines that I drew, and on the bottom here as well, which that was driving me nuts. The other thing I do like is having the borders, but I think having them on this side is bothering me. But this is not too different from what I was doing here, just very slightly. Something about this is just less overwhelming to me. I'm not sure what that is, to be fair. Because objectively, it doesn't look that different to me. So, I don't know. But, yeah. April, I changed up. I have this Midori month stencil, and I quite like it. Oh, 1 second. I quite like to use it, but it's very simplified, very reduced. So I suddenly had more room to mark things in, and I decided to split up how I was dividing things, do everything a little bit differently. So what I did here is every day I didn't read, I just used black stripes. Every day I started a book, I would use one of the circles that's in here, the smaller circles, and when I finished it, I would use one of these triangle diamond thingies. And then I color-coded all the books I was reading so that I could use that as well. And my data that I was doing in the circles here, I changed up a little bit. So I'm still doing it for formats and nonfiction versus fiction, which I didn't do prior. But I decided to do my streak info slightly differently. So here there's 4 out of 30 days I skipped. So my streak was 139. I finished 5 out of 8 books, which was an increase because this is information that Storygraph gives me, so I decided to play with that in here. So the amount of finished books increased by 67%. The amount of pages and hours I read increased and decreased for each of those. So that was just interesting to see and put in here like, oh, this is a timeline or information block. During this month, I was getting a little bit scared about needing more boxes for books I was reading because it was a very good reading month. I don't know if you can hear my cat purring, but she's sitting right next to me, purring very loudly and wanting a lot of attention. So you're welcome for the free cat purrs, and I'm sorry if it bothers you. As long as she's not on a desk, it's fine. So here I have my books bought list, and here's where the goals were put. Don't do that, no. She saw a paintbrush and decided it was the perfect thing to play with. Alright, so we are currently in May. I had an issue with the pen I was using for the header here, so I stuck something on top of it. You can vaguely see that it was bleeding through on this end, but it's not horrible. It was actually bleeding through this page so much that I stuck on a different piece of paper on top of it. I don't know if you can see that, but I had to because it was burning me too much. So here I just stuck something on top of it, copied the header in a different marker, set up this the same way as the previous month, and going with it. This is also something I'm doing slightly differently, doing like a diagonal hatching instead of the filling in, to see if that helps, and everything else is roughly the same, to be fair. So, yeah. Now, I will be doing the same layout for June. And then in July, I'm allowing myself to change it up again, but I'm not sure if I will, and if this really appeals to me in the end. I might just continue doing this. But 3 months minimum is still my personal rule. So I just have these marked for the relevant months, so there's space for them, and I don't get short on pages. Then we have a list of all the books in order with the page numbers, so I have a tracking of what's on there and where and what number and all of that stuff. My actual review pages are like this. I have my title with author, the cover, star rating, the time I spent reading it, the format I was reading it in, the genre it's belonging to according to me, or whatever website I'm using to reference it, the year it was published in, the source I'm reading it from, and these have a series on here and challenge, but I believe I changed that to goals later on. And then this is my book review rating system that I came up with myself. It's called the Bookworm, but book written the Dutch way, and I have this little reference sheet that I made. So everything is rated from 1 to 3 except for the last 3, which are 0 to 3 or 0 to 1, and based on that I have a conversion table. So that's kind of how I rate them. My rating is about the balance of pacing or overall feeling of balance in the story, how well the outline of the book is or the plot clarity is, like what is it setting out to do. Part of the reason for all of this is that I wanted to use the same system for both my fiction as my non-fiction reading. And obviously, reading a fiction book about going on a heroic journey is very different when it comes to balance and outline and character and writing and all of that than when you read a book about, I don't know, history and folklore. So there's all these things. The execution of the set outline or plot, so how well is it doing the thing it set out to do? Character development, if there's characters in it, or compatibility, so how compatible is it with me personally? The writing style of a book, how well that speaks to the topic or me personally. The yield or enjoyment of or usefulness of said books. Sometimes I don't really enjoy books, but they are very useful to me. And then whether I would recommend them to others or if I want more books like that one. That also factors into if something is a very good book to me. Now, there might be cases where maybe I don't give 1 point on something, but I don't feel like that's a deal breaker for like a 5-star rating, and I might break my rule to stick to this, but this is like the guideline I set out to do. And so far, I found that my rating outcome aligns pretty well with what I would intuitively give it. But I also want to add that I don't see giving a 2-star review always as this was a super bad book and no one should read it, but rather this was not really for me. Or I have issues with it, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I did them all with the color of the month, so it's easy to see when I was reading what. Oh, and then the review itself, I start with a summary and then my opinion of whatever book I was reading. Also, I have the number of what number of book it was that I finished. And so we go on. This is another page I had to stick new paper onto because of the bleed through. Some of these were better than others, but this is also where I was, for example, using a spare sheet to test my nib or to soak up more ink out of the nib before putting it to the paper, so it was a bit drier writing. And this is when I was when it was freshly inked, so it bled through, and I had to add a paper on the other side. This is also where it bled through, and I tried to do like a painting thing on it, and it looks like ass, but I tried. I tried my best. I apparently didn't put this back. Alright. And this is the pen that was not really doing what I wanted to, and I decided to just write down these things with my regular pen instead of doing this, even though I really like the look of this, but it's fine. This is what I mean with I'm trying to work around the issues I'm having. So that's what I've been reading, mostly. From the back to front part, we have all the things I wanted to be in here that I tried to figure out at the start of the year. My pen test, another pen test, and this is what's confusing me, because when I was doing these thicker calligraphy tests, they came out fine, but then they don't when I do them on the other pages. This is my physical TBR. I've only marked books that I either already started reading or have already read and want to reread. This is set aside for the end of the year. And then, oh boy. 1 second. This part is where we get to my series reviews. One of the things I felt like wanting to do was rating a series, not just for its individual parts, but also as a whole, because, for example, I remember reading the Murderbot Diaries last year, really liking some of the books, maybe didn't give a very high rating on some of the other books, but overall my feeling of the series was like 5 or 4 star rating. So that's why I decided I wanted to do a series review as well. So this also has all of my thoughts, and this is a brief summary of the individual books for the Mobile Suit Gundam series. This one I have only read the first one so far, so I'm just adding to this as we go, but this is also where I was having more issues with headers, and I like the way this looks way too much to stop doing it, so I'm just working around it at this point. This is what basically happens when I do it this way. It just bleeds through and it makes it look messy on the other side. This is the Arkham Horror series I was talking about earlier. There's a lot of parts to this series. It's not officially a series, but they're mostly short story collections, so I sometimes crack one open. This is one of the series I wanted to read. This is one I'm currently reading and having a lot of fun with. Another one I wanted to read, so I made a page for it. And again, for The Witcher and the Chronicles of Amber. So these are just set aside for these series. I might not get to them, and then I will have these empty pages, but what I might do at that point, if I don't end up reading them, is just write a bit about if I still am interested in reading them or not, or if there's a particular reason I didn't get to them. So there's that. And then I have a bunch of pages left over for actual reviews. And I'm slightly nervous if I will have enough, but I guess we will find out. I should have enough. I think I can fit at least another 50 books on here. But it might be tight if I read a ton of books. So we'll see. But that's how I've been using this, and overall it's nice. I like the shape, like the size of the book. I like the cover, the paper and the grid is a nice color and all of that. It's just, if you really like doing a lot of fountain pen stuff or like calligraphy with fountain pens, this is not the brand for you. Just for the amount of money you pay for these notebooks, it's just not worth it. So I'm unsure what I'm going to do about that next year, but I have been really enjoying keeping a reading journal, and I will continue to do so next year as well. I have already firmly decided on that. This is just a lot of fun to me. So that was a lot about just that one journal, but I wanted to show you how I was going about doing it because it's first for me, and I see it a lot on YouTube and social media, so I figured people might be interested in seeing all of that. All right. Then we have my spiritual journals. I currently have them in my Rotor van Taschenbegleiter cover, because these are basically similar topics, so I can keep them together, and I don't need them regularly, so they sit nicely on the shelf this way. This is the Gale Letter Everyday book, and what I'm doing in here is basically anything related to my spiritual practice, any thoughts, feelings, experiences, or things like divination, readings go in here. Anything I just want to get off my mind on the topic, essentially. And then if I want to revisit a reading, I can go back in here, read through it, add notes if I want to. I've also decided I want to do book reviews that I either did in the past or currently on related books, and copy them in here because this is where they are relevant. And other things like that. So these are some experiences I had, for example, and I put some pages aside to copy some over that are in my course book. Yeah, not a ton to say about that, but just showing you very briefly how I've been using it, in case this is of interest to you. And then this is my divination study book, and currently it's mostly studying a very particular deck, which is the Oracle of Black Enchantment, which I'm having a lot of fun with. So I basically do these card overview pages where I write down the meaning and analyze the art and how it relates to the meaning or what I see in it. So it becomes my own sort of reference for the deck, and I tend to do it with any card that comes up in a reading. So some of these are empty because I haven't seen them yet, and then others I have done some analyzing of. So this way I have both at the same place, and I can refer back to this when it's relevant, add to it when it's relevant, and build on it that way instead of spending a ton of time going through a deck at once, and have it grow more organically, I guess. I do have a list of things I want to also include in here, but I just haven't gotten the time to spend on that yet, so it's just on a little post-it for now. One thing I will say is I put all the pictures on the same spot in the notebook, which means it's now very thick on that side and not on the other. So I might need to balance it out a little bit further in the notebook by pasting things on the top or more spread out. But that was kind of to be expected, but it's not horrible. Just something I need to keep in mind as I go. But so far I'm enjoying this. The other one was Astrology notebook, and I'm quite liking the paper. I expected it to be a lot worse, especially since this pen and ink was quite a wet combination and it doesn't bleed through at all. So that made me decide to get more other astrology notebooks. So whenever I see them on sale, I try to snag one if I can. So I will be continuing using astrology in the future. So I'm having a pretty good experience with that. Then we have, checking my list, there's a particular notebook that I want to talk about. I've been thinking about getting a Clairefontaine H-bag notebook in the A5 size, and I ordered one with the plain paper, and then it arrived and I found out it was an A4 size that I ordered. So, you know, this was the notebook when it arrived, and then I cut it in half, and now I have two of them. But besides that, what I wanted to show you real quick is I did a pen test of this paper. So I have various inks on here in various different pens, and some of these have sheening properties that you can actually see, maybe not perfectly, but they're there. And they don't bleed through, surprisingly. Like, there's ghosting, and I would expect that to happen, but there's no bleed through. So I'm very pleased with my first impressions of them so far. I did this page before I cut them in half, so my notes on the paper are also cut in half. But I also tried out some other things, like these are gouache, watercolor, alcohol markers, mild liners, different pens. Of course, Sharpie bled through and alcohol markers bled through, but that's about it. So overall, I'm very pleased with this paper. Yeah, if you like using fountain pens and want an inexpensive option for use with fountain pens, I would recommend this paper, at least with my first impressions. And there's quite a nice amount of pages in here. There's also a version that comes with a elastic band, and those have numbered pages, in case that matters to you. I believe they're called My Essential, but they're still part of the H-back edition. The only issue with this was that I wanted to use it in my other letter cover. This one, which I'm currently using with a Leuchtturm A5 notebook for my morning pages, and I have my empty Charfer's notebook insert in here that I didn't put in the actual Charfer's notebook. But this thing has hooks, and if this was a journal with the spine on this side, it would not have been a problem, but the way it is now, I cannot put it in there if I wanted to. So I was trying to work out a solution for keeping this in there, and one of the things I was considering was taking like a piece of cardboard or something, folded in half, sticking it in the back of one of the cover parts, and then like using it as a slide-in type of solution. Might not really work out the way I'm thinking about it, but it might be one way of going about it. Alright, I think I've talked about my journals enough at this point. I'm having a quick look at my list of things, but I think we got all of it. I mean, there is my sketchbooks, but I might make a different video about that, I think. I'll just briefly show you the one-a-day journals that I started, these two. As I said, I've been using these a little bit, and then not really after a while. I'm trying to keep up with them a little bit currently, but there's plenty of days I didn't fill in, and then there's days I did. I do like this amount of space to do gratitude journaling in, because it's not a lot, so it doesn't feel like a lot of pressure to keep up with it. It's just that I don't remember to actually do it. And then this one, I think it's the way it's formatted that I don't like about this journal as a sketchbook. The paper is not horrible, it's like nice and soft, but of course it's not fountain pen friendly. Didn't expect it to be, but that's still a little bit sad. And then sometimes I skip days, but I had already filled in what day it was supposed to be, so kind of screwed myself over that way. I think it's these border things and stuff that I don't really like about it, and I don't feel a lot of freedom to mess around with different mediums. Some of these days I did draw in a different sketchbook, this one, or digitally, and then I took a picture and stuck it in here. This is another digital drawing I did, but I just don't feel like keeping up with this, even though there's not really anything wrong with it necessarily. I don't know, it just feels, again, a bit forced, and I think that's holding me back from actually using it. I did put a generator table in the back. If I wasn't sure what to draw, I could like do roll a d6 to figure out what I was going to be drawing, but I haven't actually used that. So I'm not sure if I will be forcing myself to keep using this. I might not. At this point, I don't really care about it anymore, which sucks to say, but I care more about drawing than whether it's in this journal or not. So I haven't made up my mind about this, but this is what it is currently. This is the one I have been using somewhat here and there, but the paper isn't great for all kinds of things that I use. So that became a little bit of a problem. I did do some various things like paint in it, some sketches and what have you. Got some acrylic markers. So I've been playing around with some things in here, and that's nice. So at least I'm busy with that again. And then I got this one recently, which is a kangaroo sketchbook. And I am liking using it, but I only have it for like a week now, so it's not a lot in here, and part of the things that are in here right now are also for the college I signed up for, so things like that. But at least I am engaging again with my sketchbooks, and that's more important to me than how I do that. So yeah, I will make a separate video, I guess. Maybe I'll have to figure out how I want to do that about my sketchbooks or my art process, because I think that might help me figure some things out, and maybe someone else will also benefit from it, because I've been watching a lot of sketchbook tour videos lately, or draw with me videos and stuff like that. I found those to be very helpful to me, so maybe I can like return a favor kind of deal with that. We'll see if I actually end up doing that and have the time or whatever for it, or to even post them. Yeah. I don't think I mentioned, but the course I signed up for is a 4-year bachelor in art and education. So it's basically like education to become an art teacher and artist at the same time. So I am very excited about that, but I still need to get accepted into the school first. So I'm very busy and a little bit chaotic and stressed about all of that stuff at this time, and it's gonna eat up my time a little bit, but I'll be thinking through that, and I do want to share part of my process with that, if only to help my future self if I'm stuck in this situation again. So maybe if I don't benefit from it, maybe you will, or maybe it helps me get things out of my system. So maybe, yeah, look forward to that, or let me know if that is something you're interested in, or what about that might be something you're interested in. And with that, I will wish you a very nice day, and hopefully see you again in another video. Bye.